Hello and hello. Thank you so much for joining me today. How you guys doing? I'm excited because I like these type of videos. German culture shocks, you know, as an American. By Kelly Does Her Thing. Check it out, link down below. This one's got a lot of views. 1M. It's also got a lot of dislikes, which I always find kind of intriguing. That can be for one of two reasons, I feel like, in general. It's either because she was, you know, not very flattering of Germany, or maybe something in here is disputed by Germans. You know, they say that's not accurate. So I'm going to try to, you know, see if we can find what those might be, but also just learn some more things, you know, as I do every day about Germany. So let's do it.
I saw this a couple of times before I finally realized what was happening. Hey guys, what's up? It's Kelly again, and welcome back to my channel. I've talked to you guys before about Misha's culture shocks as a German coming to live in the United States. And while I've referenced some of them throughout...
Oh, that must be like her, I don't know. I won't speculate, but I guess her partner maybe, who moved to the US.
My videos, I realized that I've never directly talked to you guys about the culture shocks I've experienced as an American living in Germany. But today is the day I'm finally doing it, and while I could talk a lot about this, and there are so many different culture shocks that I experienced, I'm going to limit myself to only 7. So here are 7 culture shocks that I, as an American, experienced while I was living in Germany. First up is how cheap everything is. I used to think that the cost of living in Germany would be really high because it's Europe. And like a lot of Americans, when I hear the word Europe, I think fancy. Like the adjective Europe.
It can be, that is true. That is true, which is kind of funny because obviously Europe is a very large place comprised of many countries, some of which have a very low cost of living. Others have a very high.
European is basically synonymous with the adjective luxury. And while there are some countries in Europe that
yeah, with like cars and fashion, it does have that kind of connotation.
That are objectively expensive, like Switzerland and Norway, aside from the cost of gas and electricity, I personally found the cost of living to be cheaper in Germany than anywhere else that I lived in the US. Everything from food to rent to even cars. I recently came across...
Wow, that is surprising.
An article talking about how the rent prices in Berlin have hit record highs and that the government is starting to take action to better control rent prices, which were being inflated by large companies. The record high rent is 10 euro per square meters in the city, specifically in the country's capital, where I think you could objectively assume that the rent price will be the highest. My rent in DC is almost 4 times that.
Whoa. Damn.
I pay about 35 euro per square meter in my apartment, and the thought of paying only 620
a big ass apartment.
$20 in rent per month for my apartment is unfathomable to me. Now, of course, there are about 100 different factors to consider here, as this difference in rent doesn't exist in a vacuum. Income levels, take-home pay after taxes, and the fact that our apartments in the US come with kitchens.
That's an interesting point.
Are just a few that make it impossible to directly compare the rent of my apartment to the rent of a seemingly comparable apartment a German has in Berlin. But the overarching point is that I was really shocked by what you could call the sticker price for the cost of living in Germany.
That is surprising. I don't know why, even after all these years of reacting to German stuff, I would have thought that overall Germany was more expensive. Which I guess I'd have to look at the, you know, like the holistic numbers on this. But hearing her anecdotal account, you know, that's very meaningful.
As being so much cheaper than everywhere that I've lived in.
I know that, you know, like some grocery staples, like bread and stuff, can be cheaper in Germany than here in America, which is interesting because groceries are cheap here in America. You know, it's relatively cheap. It's known to be relatively cheap here in USA. But Germany somehow has extremely cheap groceries as well, or even cheaper.
In the US. Number 2. Okay, guys, I saw this a couple of times before I finally realized what was happening. So I would go out to dinner at a restaurant and there would be other patrons of the restaurant sitting around me in pairs or in groups, and they would be eating their meals. And the first time that I saw this was a group of about, I think it was 8 people, and they suddenly just all got up out of their chairs and vacated the table together at the same exact time. And when I looked at their table, I noticed that there was still some food on their plates, that there were drinks half finished, and that there was even a girl's jacket left hanging
Sounds
on
like they're dining and dashing.
the back of one
Oh, well, she wouldn't leave her jacket if they were doing that.
of the chairs. And the server wasn't coming over to the table to start cleaning up the plates or anything. Everything was left just as is. And so I didn't know what was going on. Where did they all go? Are they all going to the bathroom together in one giant group? That seems very strange. Maybe there's a bar in the restaurant that I didn't notice and they were all
I've never heard anything like this.
going to the bar to get some drinks or some shots together. I couldn't figure it out. And then they all, after about 10 minutes, came back in and all sat down together and finished enjoying the rest of their meals and time together. Honestly, guys, I saw this so many times before I finally understood that the reason why this was happening is because they are walking outside and having a smoke break. I have never in my life seen this happen before moving to Germany. And
You know what, that is interesting? It's interesting because it's just indicative of how, like, in European restaurants in general, and I mean, I understand it's more so like this in, like, France and stuff, but you just really take your time at the restaurant, you know what I mean? There's no rush. If you did this at an American restaurant, well, for one thing, the waiter would be like, where are you guys going? I mean, there would probably be some level of concern that, like, you guys are leaving without paying. But if you said you're going to smoke, I mean, they would be fine with it. But it would be like, really? Like, I don't know. They'd probably be a little bit annoyed, frankly, that, you know, you're taking up the table and going off and smoking for, you know, some period of time. But I guess in Europe, people are just more chill about that type of thing. It's interesting.
it really surprises me, not only because people are interrupting their meal to go and have a cigarette, but also because I just can't believe how many Germans are still smoking. In the US, of course, we have smokers. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like we don't. We do have smokers, but I would say that it's just not really socially accepted anymore. And of course, I've seen people in the US walk outside of a bar or a nightclub to have a smoke break.
You know, it's interesting. I've looked up the numbers on this as well, as far as American versus European smokers. And of course, the numbers show that it's much more common in Europe and in Germany in particular, and a lot of Europe compared to USA. But I think even those numbers like downplay just how much more common it is in Europe, because I don't know, it's just the only people left smoking here in America are like old people and people out in the country. It's I shouldn't say the only people. And actually, I mean, personally, I'm not trying to judge anybody. I really don't care. I think cigarettes are kind of nice. But it's just not very common among young people here in America anymore. I'd say 1 out of 10 people maybe smoke. Young people. Roughly.
Break, but never. I cannot imagine people leaving their dinner at a restaurant to walk outside, smoke, and then come back. I can't imagine it. This was truly shocking to me. Number 3 is how much more popular Android
Interesting.
Phones are compared to iPhones. Whenever I first started making friends in Germany and we would exchange numbers, they would inevitably ask me, hey, what's your WhatsApp? WhatsApp, of course, referring to the text messaging application. And I, at first, didn't think too much about this.
Nobody uses that here in America.
I just assumed.
Well, they do in Canada and stuff. I know, people get upset a lot lately about calling USA America. To me, I don't care. It's just semantic. I really don't give a shit. But USA, that's what I'm talking about, obviously, when I say America.
That people preferred WhatsApp because it claims to have end-to-end encryption and it has some other benefits.
And I mean, part of the reason is if you think about the name USA, United States of America, it's just a shorthand, America, United States of America. I'm not saying all that. United States, woo. America. Of America. Sorry, I'm going on a really stupid random rant.
People preferred WhatsApp because it claims to have end-to-end.
It's just one of those things where it's like people, I don't know. People get worked up about it, and it's like, I'm not trying to exclude people or anything. It's literally just a term. I don't care if the United States.
Encryption and it has some other benefits to it. But what I didn't realize is that the preference for WhatsApp is largely predicated on the fact that Android phones are so much more popular than iPhones in Germany. To give you an idea, as of September 2018, iPhone sales in Germany flopped at 16%, whereas Android sales soared at 83%. That is a huge difference. And in the US, those numbers are a lot closer to 50-50. Although I will say that it feels as though the overwhelming majority of people in the US own iPhones.
That's another one of the things. It's kind of like smoking, where you look at those numbers and you might think, oh, 50-50. But it's like she says, that's actually misrepresentative if you were to come here. It's more like among people, like people who own Androids, a lot of them are country folk, for whatever reason. And older people. So, like, if you go into a U.S. city and you're going out with a bunch of young people, it's going to be, like, probably 75%, 80% iPhones. I think that's about right.
There are even entire jokes in the US referencing iPhones as being the better or elite phone.
Oh my God.
I've seen so many tweets.
Dude, I feel like the whole Android versus iPhone, I'm so glad that, like, people, at least from what I've seen, have stopped, like, arguing about it, because I just don't care at all anymore. It used to be interesting back when, well, it used to be that iPhones were a lot better than Android. And I owned an Android phone, okay? I feel like people are going to be mad at me. But I'm old, okay? So I'm going way back. But Android caught up and in a lot of ways is better than iPhone. And in a lot of ways, I support Android more just from a philosophical standpoint, being open source. Although it's still, of course, controlled by Google to a large extent. But because of the Google Play Store and other things. But what was my point? My point is that 10 years ago, they became way more similar in their capabilities to where they're the same. They're practically the same in their capabilities. Now, there's a million different Android phones, and there's only one iPhone, or like 3 any given year. Apple makes like 3 different versions. There's a million Android phones, so some are terrible, but they're like $50, and then some are $1,000, and they're amazing. And so the debate between the two is just not interesting to me at all. It's like, who cares? I don't know.
Or memes making fun of Androids, and I've seen screenshots of.
This is kind of a old thing. This video actually is 7 years old, so this debate, I'd say in 2026 is no longer had, thank God.
Conversations like this one.
You will not be made fun of for having an Android phone. in the US of A today. Well, maybe by some. I don't fucking know, man. I can't speak for 350 million people, but for the most part, nobody gives a shit.
Where someone gets a text from an Android on their iPhone, which means the text shows up in green, and then the Android user gets promptly ridiculed.
Okay, now maybe among like kids that probably is still a thing because the Android and iPhone of course purposely makes it like to where their ecosystem is hostile to Android phones. I'm not up to date on all of it. I'm just moving on.
There are a couple of reasons why I think that Germans are more apt to use Androids over iPhones, but the primary reason I think is because iPhones are just way too dang expensive, and Germans tend to be a bit more frugal, and they just don't really...
Yeah, but Android phone, a lot of the Android phones cost just as much. I guess we're talking about 7 years ago.
Care about luxury items. But this was strange for me as an American who's owned an iPhone for, I don't know, over 8 years, and everyone I text with in the US has an iPhone too.
I mean, I have an iPhone and I paid $200 for it. So, you know, the whole like, oh, it's too expensive. It just doesn't. I guess now that we're in a state where old iPhones, like I don't even know what this is. You know, that's how much I care. I don't even know what I have. It's perfectly functional and good. But it's an older generation one, you know, a few years old, couple years old, I don't know. But it was only $200. So it's not too expensive.
And then to go to Germany and have the complete opposite experience where pretty much everyone that I texted with has an Android. Number 4 is having to go inside to the gas station to pay for gas. The whole time that I've been driving in the US, I've always been able to pay for my gas at the pump. So to move to a modern country like Germany and find myself having to go into the gas station to pay for my gas, I was really shocked by this. If you're German and you're watching this and you've never pumped gas in the US, then I will tell you that most gas stations in the US will have a card reader and PIN pad right at the
all of them will.
The pump ready for you to be able to pay for your gas with your card. And there will even sometimes be television screens playing advertisements while you pump your gas.
Yeah, that's the most dystopian aspect of it. I couldn't fucking believe it when they first started doing that. But yeah, sometime in the last 10 years, they started adding these screens that play ads while you pump gas. How fucking dumb is that? Oh my God.
It isn't just the Germans who appreciate efficiency, Americans appreciate it too, and being able to pay at the pump is far more efficient than having to go inside. And with
every once in a while, the screen will like tell you the weather or something, you know, between ads, and I find that to be nice. But the ad, it's there to play ads.
The amount of miles we commute and the long road trips we have, most people want to expedite their stop at a gas station as much as possible. I don't exactly know why in Germany you don't have the ability to pay for gas at the pump. I have the reasonable assumption that it has something to do with the cash is king culture in Germany, which requires a customer to cashier transaction, and that it might also have to do with the fact that gas stations in Germany sell...
I mean, you could do it vending machine style, you know, put the money into, you could, you know, I mean, that does exist.
Sell gas as close to the market.
That would be interesting. I've certainly never seen that, like a cash thing that you can put money into at the pump.
Value as possible, so the profit margin for gas is much lower, and therefore to make any money the gas station needs customers to come inside and pay for products because that's the only way they make any revenue. Number 5 is swearing.
That's an interesting theory.
On the radio. So I was in my car in Germany, beep bopping along to my radio.
Sorry, do you want a coffee?
Yeah, I'll take a coffee. Thanks.
Broke
Thanks,
the
Sid.
fourth wall here.
And the song by Iman came on. Now,
Imagine she said no. He already made her the coffee. You know what I mean?
I'm going to have to bleep out a lot of what I'm about to say. So just know that every time you hear a bleep, it's me saying the word fuck. This song by
It's you saying the word beep?
mine called F It, I Don't Want You Back came out in 2004 or 2005, and it is riddled with the word F. In fact, he says the word F 22 fucking times. And when you hear this song playing on the radio in the US, you're hearing the radio edit version, meaning they've censored out every time he sings the word F. But in Germany, there is no radio edit version. They just play the original version. And it was really shocking for me to hear the word F on the radio like that. I've always been aware of the fact that censorship of words and nudity in Germany is a lot more lax than what it is in the US. And I obviously have no problem with cursing myself, but it was still really shocking to encounter this. And I think that this topic deserves
It is interesting considering, you know, America is supposed to be free speech, you know, no censorship. The media is censored in that regard. Yes, indeed.
way more attention than what I'm
It's quite funny when you hear like an Eminem song or something, you know.
able to give it in this.
It's just like no lyrics all of a sudden for half the verse. It's just a beat. And then he comes back in.
Video, but I find it really interesting, as I believe many people do, to talk about the somewhat contradictory nature of censorship in US media. For example, we have TV shows with very repulsive plot themes and movies with extremely violent scenes that will play on TV without any sort of censorship, and yet certain swear words have to be bleeped out. In fact, I've even seen...
It is interesting. I mean, a lot of it's got to do with like the time of day. After a certain time of day, the regulations become way more relaxed.
Shows where they bleep out.
And also, this is only for you know, broadcast TV. Has way tighter restrictions than cable TV.
Swear words said in other languages where the majority of the audience wouldn't even know what they're saying. And then to go to Munich, Germany and see some signs with the word written right on them out in public without anybody batting an eye, it was just such a huge dichotomy in culture.
That's funny.
So experiencing what Germany does, or in this case doesn't censor out, was really shocking for me to learn coming from the US. Number 6 is Germans knowing US American songs better than me. And this one's just funny. So there was an Irish bar in Mainz that I loved going to. It was creatively named Irish Pub. And on Friday nights, they would play, I think it was Friday nights, they would play live music. And it was always such a blast for me because everyone would kind of pack into this small room and everyone would be dancing and singing along to the band. And sometimes the band would play American music. They would play classics or they would play more recent pop songs, and I swear everyone in the room, regardless of the song, would be singing every single word of every single song, and this was just shocking to me. I think the first time I saw it, I just had this sudden realization of just how much US pop culture is propagated outside of the US. And some of you guys may know that I lived in Turkey before I ever moved to Germany, and sure, there were sometimes music videos playing on the TV screens in some bars, or there would be some American music playing in some of the restaurants or bars, but really not that much. And then traveling around to all of the countries I've been to, I would see some indications of American pop culture, or at least the influence of it. But I guess I just didn't think that Germans, or people from any country for that matter, would be listening to American music over the music of their own country, or at least to the point where they know every single word to every single American song. This was really shocking to me. And now a word from our sponsor.
Hey guys.
He's the sponsor?
I'm Misha. I'm
coffee dude?
Playing the part of German boyfriend, and I'm a video game creator, developer.
Start over.
No.
Yeah.
I created a turn-based strategy game for Windows called Run for Cover that is about a country in a civil war and a president gone mad. You will find the link in the description below, and please feel free to check it out.
That's pretty fucking awesome, dude. I hope his game got a lot of play, you know. That's awesome. In my opinion, that's like, I don't know, one of the coolest jobs in the world. Game developer.
play it right now, you can get it for free. Please make sure to leave a comment and rate my game, but please remember that the game is currently in early development, so...
Be nice.
Yeah, be kind.
Be best.
Okay, bye!
What does be best mean?
And number 7, the last culture shock that I'm going to talk to you guys about is brothels. Brothels are completely legal in Germany, and in the US they are not, with some small exceptions in Nevada.
That is surprising. You know, that's the aspect of Germany that I really know nothing about. It's very interesting. Because that is a very foreign concept to me as an American, other than in like Las Vegas.
There's a brothel right by the main train station in Mainz that I must have walked by over 100 times when I was living there before I learned what it was, because I didn't realize that a
Oh, is that it? That's crazy. Oh, there's the red lights. Das is crazy, man. As an American, that is just interesting to me. That's so wild. I'm just looking at it like, huh.
building
It just exists, you know? It's just in plain view. You don't have to pretend it's a massage parlor. Which they do here in America, believe it or not. That's extremely common. It's just there.
having red lights was an indicator for it being a brothel. Of course, I had heard of the red light district in Amsterdam and I understood what that meant, but I didn't realize how on the nose the nickname for that district was. And it's not just seeing the brothel that was so shocking for me, but also learning more about the culture of it.
It would probably take me a minute to put that 2 and 2 together there too.
And understanding how and why it's legal. I don't want to get into all of that right now, but I think coming...
You know, I mean, this sounds kind of... I don't know if this sounds bad, but I'm not... not for my own purposes, but I am curious how much it costs. You know? To me, that's the question. How much are they charging?
From the
How much are dudes paying for this?
US, where I think we collectively as
100 euros per hour? Oh, I guess that's for the fancy district.
society really grapple with the idea of seeing sex as a normal, healthy part of life rather than something that's forbidden, or at least that we shouldn't talk about. Seeing this part of German culture was really shocking for me. Alright guys, that's all I've got for you today. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you guys be a part of my family. Thank you so much to my patrons. You guys are awesome for the support you've given me, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!
Well, that was very interesting. Very fascinating. Some interesting subjects there. Now, why did it get a lot of dislikes? I guess she was a little bit like... I could see how some people wouldn't like the part about the American music, where they're like, no, we're not obsessed with American culture, you know. Living in Germany my entire life, never seen one of these smoke breaks. Oh, interesting. And that's the top comment, 5,000 upvotes. It's a weird thing. So that's the top comment, but she's saying she saw it like many times. So how could she have seen it many times? It's not like she's lying, you know? Obviously she saw people get up and leave their tables multiple times, unless it was all just a coincidence that she saw that. But then there's people here saying they never seen it. Same here, sometimes after having food and then only a few people of the group. The food will get cold. After the meal while you're staying at the restaurant or another drink, yes, but usually not while eating. Well, regardless. Maybe that's the distinction. Like, maybe she said it was while they were eating, and maybe that's one of the main points of contention. Like, here in America, I'd say that if you're at a restaurant, if you're occupying a table, then you're eating at the table. You know, there isn't really even a concept for like what anything else you'd be doing at the table. You know? If you're not eating at the table, then what are you doing? I'm just saying that's how it kind of like the American mindset is that, you know. But they're saying like after they eat while staying at the restaurant for another drink, which isn't even really a concept here in America. At a bar it is. Of course, at a bar that is, but not at a restaurant. Maybe they didn't finish all the food, but people going out to smoke after eating isn't uncommon. Okay. This is sort of interesting because it's like trying to figure out exactly what the point of contention here is just interesting to me to try to point out. Because, like I said, it's not like she's insane. She saw what she saw. It's just that maybe she made a mistake of saying they were in the middle of eating. The state of mind of the average American is very charitably described as naive. Vulgar pispers. I don't know what the point of this comment is or why it has 700 thumbs up. I think that's just an insult. I mean, of course, Americans do exist in our own bubble. But as far as our naivete, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could say that. But trust me, I've corresponded with tons of people all across the world at this point running these channels. And it turns out we're all just human, okay? There's nothing specially bad or specially good about Americans, and the same with Europeans. We are all just humans. And this girl here who made this video did nothing wrong. You know, she was very positive, very nice, and obviously she's naive about Europe. She didn't grow up there. Berlin hasn't the highest rents. Hamburg and Munich are way more expensive. That's probably like a common misconception, I'd say, that just because, you know, Berlin, the capital of Germany, people just assume, you know, Berlin, it must be the most expensive. But in the same way that, you know, Washington, D.C. is not the most expensive city here in America, Berlin is not in Germany. That's a good point. It's a culture shock to me that these things are culture shocks. Okay. I pay for gas inside. I have an Android. I smoke. I am American. No one was saying that no Americans pay for gas or have an Android or smoke. Although, if you sold me all three of those things, I'd say there's a higher likelihood that you're European. Sorry, it is just annoying to me when people are like, what? Those things you listed also do happen in America. And vice versa. You know, those things happen in Europe as well. It's like, yeah, just not nearly to the same extent. If you collected the data on the amount of people who pay for gas inside, have an Android phone, and smoke, and compared it USA versus Europe, it would be way, way, way higher in Europe. Reason for WhatsApp is that text messages were expensive for a long time. That's an interesting piece of history. You know, I almost forgot that, like, that was a thing. I mean, I'm old enough to remember, but I still forgot, you know, back in the day, on the cell phone plans, they would have you, like, it's so stupid. They had, like, rates for SMS. Now, of course, iPhones don't use SMS anymore. They use iMessage. So it goes through data just like WhatsApp does. But it only uses iMessage when communicating with another iPhone. This was the freaking song. Like, somehow I knew. I've heard Germans sing this song. Every German loves this. I mean, it's a great song. It's pretty random, though. Country road, take me home. But that's the one. That's the one you guys all know, isn't it? Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.